relationship, bro, you're gonna have to not do it to her body. You gotta do it to her mind, man.
on me. I'm a little mercy. Yeah, me moaning, groaning, you. Yeah, me moaning, groaning me. Early in the morning, you, moaning, groaning, baby. I got a moan to you, baby. I got a moan to you, baby. Come on.
legend of the phoenix all ends with beginnings. What keeps the planet spinning? The force from the beginning. Love. We've come too far to give up who we are. So let's raise the bar and our cups to the stars. She's up all night to the sun. I'm up all night to get some. She's up all night for good fun. I'm up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to the sun. We're up all night to get some. We're up all night for good fun. We're up all night to get lucky. 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 The present has no ribbon. Your gift keeps on giving. What is this I'm feeling? If you wanna leave, I'm with it. We've come too far to give up who we are. So let's raise the bar and our cups to the stars. She's up all night to the sun. I'm up all night to get some. She's up all night for good fun. I'm up all night to get lucky. We're up all night to the sun. We're up all night to get some. We're up all night for good fun. We're up all night to get lucky. I know you don't get a chance to take a break this often. I know your life is speeding and it isn't stopping. Here, take my shirt and just go ahead and wipe up all the sweat, sweat, sweat. Lose yourself to dance. Lose yourself to dance. Lose yourself to dance. Lose yourself to dance. It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here. You can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space with the air like I don't care, baby. By the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is.
Coming up in 30 minutes.
Baby, this is what you came for. Lightning strikes every time she moves.
Coming up in 30 minutes. Some mini Ice Age conversations. David Dubine and Ransom Godwin. Stay tuned. 30 minutes. Yeah, so this is getting tiresome with these issues, with these pages and so forth, and the mouse action. It's getting tiresome. Seriously.
Catch me in the mall, you know I buy it out. G5 plane, yeah I fly it out. On the back, look like Lex sitting on 28. No, you can't get her if you ain't got plenty cake. ATL Georgia, booties look like this size. 23 waist, pretty face, big thighs.
I can do it, I can do it all. I can do it whenever or however you want. I can do it up and down, I can do circles. To him I'm a gymnast, this can is my circus. I get it so good, been waiting
The whole room fell silent, the girls all paused with glee. Turning left, turning right, thought they looking at me. When I was looking at them, there on the dance floor. Now they got me in the middle, feeling like a man. Especially the big girls need love too, no discrimination here, squirrel. So keep your hands off my cheeks, let me study how you ride the beat, you big freak. Skinny, slim women got the toe within them, you can them lift them give them something to remember. Hell out timber when you fall through the chop shop. Take a deep breath and exhale. Your ex-girlfriend, boyfriend was boring as hell. Well, let me listen to the story you tell. And we can make moves like a person in jail. On the low. I like the way you move. I like the way you move. Woo, I love the way you move. I love the way. I love the way. I love the way you move. I love the way you move. I love the way belts and Patty Melts and Monte Carlos and Eldorados. I'm waking up out of my slumber feeling like Rollo. So follow, it's showtime at the Apollo minus the Kiki Shepherds. With a bada with a leopard print. Teddy, Pendergrass, cooler than Freddie Jackson, sipping a milkshake in a snowstorm. Left I throw warm in the dorm room at the AU. We blew hay to athletes might cake you, but you must have me mistaken with them statements that you make,
Watching me.
I'm just an average man with an average life. I work from 9 to 5. Hey, hell, I pay the price. All I want is to be left alone in my average home. But why do I always feel like I'm in the twilight zone? And I always feel like somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Oh, I always feel like somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? When I come home at night, I break the door real tight. People call me on the phone, I'm trying to avoid. But can the people on TV see me, or am I just paranoid? When I'm in the shower, I'm afraid to wash my hair, 'cause I might open my eyes and find someone standing there. People say I'm crazy, just a little touched, but maybe showers remind me of Psycho Doom. That's why I always feel like
Alone in my four-corner room, staring at candles. But that shit is on. Let me drop some shit like this here. At night I can't sleep, I toss and turn. Candlesticks in the dark, visions of bodies being burned. Four walls just staring at a nigga. I'm paranoid, sleeping with my finger on the trigger. My mother's always stressing I ain't living right, but I ain't going out without a fight. See, every time my eyes close, I start sweating and blood starts coming out my nose. It's somebody watching the act, but I don't know who it is, so I'm watching my back. I can see him when I'm deep in the covers. When I awake, I don't see the motherfucker. He owns a black hat like I own, a black suit and a cane like my own. Some might say take a chill, B, but fuck that shit. There's a nigga trying to kill me. I'm popping in the clip when the wind blows. Every 20 seconds got me peeping out my window. Investigating the joint for traps, checking my telephone for taps. I'm staring at the woman on the corner. It's fucked up when your mind is playing tricks on you. Waking up in the morning, gotta thank God. I don't know, but today seems kinda odd. No barking from the dog, no small. And mama cooked the breakfast with no hog. I got my grub on, but didn't dig out. Finally got a call from a girl I wanna dig out. Hooked it up for later as I hit the dough. Thinking, will I live another 24? I gotta go, 'cause I got me a drop top. And if I hit the switch, I can make the ass drop. Had to stop at a red light, looking in my mirror, not a jacker in sight, and everything is alright. I got a beat from Kim, and she can fuck all night. Called up the homies and I'm asking y'all, which part are y'all playing basketball? Get me on the court and I'm troubled. Last week fucked around and got a triple-double. Freaking niggas every way like MJ. I can't believe today was a good
wanna go somewhere to rest my head. Maybe somewhere, no problems there. You spend a lot of time wondering why. Well, if you just take a deep look into my eyes, separate your heart from your mind. The only way to deal with the stress in these times. You're walking down a lonely road. You never know what the future holds. Are you feeling it's the right time? Rivers flow during the night light. Ancient scrolls says the time's right. Let me know, yeah. Are you feeling it's the right time? Rivers flow during the night light. Ancient scrolls says the time's right. Let me know. Some say smile 'cause it ain't that bad. Pop another pill, the doctor said. Remember those feelings that you felt? Well, maybe you should get some help. Take a little time to breathe it in. Well, I can feel the fleas crawling on my skin. You'll have to give in to your want. You make another call, ask for your feeling. It's the right time. Rivers flow during the night light. Ancient scroll says the time's right. Let me know, yeah. Are you feeling it's the right time? Rivers flow during the night light. Ancient scroll says the time's right. Let me know, yeah. Caught up dreaming of a place we can go. Find a way to lead and we can follow. Each one teach one. Ready, let's go. We can find somewhere I know. 'Cause after all that we've been through, striving to survive, it's all you can do. And in the end, what's
What the fuck? Shit just randomly stopping? What the fuck, man? Seriously.
done is done. Try to work it out, 'cause we gotta move on. Are you feeling it's the right time? Rivers flow during the night light. Ancient scroll says the time's right. Let me know, yeah. Are you feeling it's the right time? Rivers flow during the night light. Ancient scroll says the time's right. Let me know, yeah.
Coming up, 20 minutes, mini Ice Age conversations with David Dubine and Ransom Godwin. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on with this internet, man. It's not my machine either. It's the internet. So I really apologize because it jams me up every time something like that happens because fucked with my flow. It's important that you have flow. Otherwise, it's a staccato nightmare. Let's get back into the flow.
You bring the beauty and the light to this world we live in. And oh, child, falling down from grace. You got the power in your smile to bring back the feeling. See you around. Summer, yeah. to this world we live in. An old child falling down from grace. You got the power in your smile to bring back the feeling.
This is our home.
I won't keep watching you dance around in your smoke and flicker out. You're not the light I used to know. I don't believe in safety nets. Stronger love to make it alright. To let go, you gotta hold on. Oh, it's gonna slip, slip, slip through your slip, slip, slip through your head. Oh, it's gonna slip, slip, slip through your slip, slip, slip through your head. Oh, it's gonna slip, slip, slip through your slip, slip, slip through your head. What's the matter? You don't have enough rain to make up your storm. Ooh, what you look so sad for? Where's the light I used to know? Oh, it's gonna slip, slip, slip through your slip, slip, slip through your head. Oh, it's gonna slip, slip, slip through your slip, slip, slip through your head. Where's that light I used to know? Where's that light I used to know?
Don't play with my money, don't play with my mind, don't play with my fucking emotion. I'm waiting on trial, and it's been a while, and I ain't got time for emotion. While you walking aisles, I'm running miles, and I ain't got time to be coasting. So look at my file, I'm counting piles of money from dreams and devotion. I know who you fucking with, it's me, myself, and I've been moving all about myself and getting to the top. You can't stop what's already on its way, so step out to the side. I've been grinding since a little kid, so I would never lie. I'm a motherfucking monster now that you just can't control. I'll just say the fuck I wanna and just do the fuck you don't. You don't understand the message, kid, then back the fuck up off. I'm a motherfucking gangster in this business, so I won't go and bow down to the people that just wanna see me fall. So go fuck yourself and all that shit, cause I can't do no wrong. I'm a demon, I'm an angel, I'm a god, so what the fuck? You don't know what I've been going through, so miss me when you front like.
Poly mailers are a great way to package your products. And with sticker...
Coming up in 9 minutes. Mini Ice Age conversation. I had to think there for a minute to see if I wanted to continue. But I will continue. So we'll play Mini Ice Age conversations coming up here at the top of the hour. It's been one long technical issue after another. And let me just say, I'm tired now at this point. I've grown tired of the thrill. The thrill is gone.
And not at all about you. Now that's two opposing thoughts, and yet both of them are true.
Thanks a lot, Rich. Really appreciate it, man. Seriously.
While observing the experience you're having from a higher view. See, it's the question, not the answer, that's the higher view. Otherwise, you couldn't differentiate between the two. Awareness, but of who? You think you hurt me, but I promise I was letting you. They say we're all one, but where have we been heading to? I'd rather die free than have to live inside a petting zoo. I am the journey that I'm getting to. My destiny is perfectly aligned with this location. I am the map, so I travel back in time. I have everything I want, cause my imagination is mine. But mine is not enough for me, cause I am not my mind. I could see it all, but never get to see I'm truly blind. I could be it all, but all identity is intertwined. The moon is only bright cause it reflects the sun's shine. It's not the human race, it's just the human race. There's nothing left to chase. We do not run this place. But both medicine and poison's an acquired taste, so I started taking selfies of somebody else's face.
Light it up. David Dubine, Many SH Conversations, Ransom Godwin. DJ B2. Our show is live Saturday or Friday night at 9 o'clock Pacific. Come on back, come on by, come hang out.
Pass it, puff it, hit it, hold it, push it, break it, down for me, come in, smoke it, pound with me, crush it, roll it, light it, smoke it, pass it, puff it, hit it, hold it, push it, break it, down for me, come in, smoke it, pound with me.
It's the Independent Broadcast Network. Mine's Jimmy. Coming up next, mini Ice Age conversations with David Dubine and Ransom Godwin. Stick around, tune in, turn on, find out. The Independent Broadcast Network.
If you feel it all to me, then my love, you go down the longest road to nowhere. You pull it apart and you're just left there. Giddy up a gold mine, horror stares down time. It's my life, it's my time.
Anyone or human being, time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast. It's about observing cycles, sharing insights, and solving problems together by combining historical, climate, food, and economic data so you can make informed decisions as we shift into a new era. Here's what was, this is what's coming. Our world is never going back to 2019, so what will the new era look like? And most importantly, what is immediate that will affect the pocketbook and the outlook into next year so we can all get ready? Thank you for joining. I'm your host, David Dubine. And I do thank you for joining this evening. What do you see the world spinning like? Definitely my spidey sense is tingling at the moment. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about that, but we're going to have to speak softly and tread on eggshells as we do, because we are live tonight on YouTube. We're going to be streaming out on YouTube, Rumble, Vigilante TV, etc. You can find links wherever you, or whatever platform that you enjoy listening to. Now, I've done something a little strange this week going out on the prophecy side of things. So I see a lot of forecasts economically talking about gold, silver, bricks, 2.0 vid, and there's just an enormous amount of things in motion at this moment. If you can't see it, it's just like overwhelming, all these, things that are giant events. So, you can look at that and try to get a forecast out. But I saw a guy that had a near-death experience, and 2 people on my channel wrote me and go, oh my gosh, this guy's talking about the electromagnetic event with the 4 gas giants coming up in 2024. He's like, you got to talk to this guy. So anyway, I did. I wrote to him, and we're planning to get on a phone call together. And it kind of, something came in and said, oh, near-death experience. What did these people see when they passed through the veil and went to the other side for, in our space-time here, it just seems like minutes or, a quarter of an hour or something less. But for them, it was hundreds of years, tens of thousands of years, whatever. It seemed like a timeless time, or there is no time. Like everybody had this perception that time bent and distorted, that they were gone for hundreds of years, but really they were gone for just minutes, and they came back into their bodies after witnessing a review of the life and all these other things. So just, I encourage you to, listen to these near-death experiences, because, as many people will experience death moving forward here during these next few years from either starvation or conflict or medicine or whatever it is. Nothing to fear on that other side, that's for sure. But I started to seek out these videos after I had an email exchange with a guy. And it was all about people that went to the other side and then brought some information back with them about the future of our world or the future of our country or the future of our politics, money, economy, or whatever. Now, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these accounts, and there's full channels devoted to near-death experience conversations and interviews. And I hadn't really delved into it, but I'm always looking for something else that can get me into the future and just see. And I'm going to run through a few of those things tonight, right along with Ransom Godwin, who's joining me tonight once again. So it's going to be a little bit, I wouldn't say woo-woo, but a little more on the edge of, what information is being brought back from the other side. And how does it tie into this darkness right now? Because I do believe, as I had a conversation with Jeff Raymond earlier today, like the splitting of the veil of this electronic or electromagnetic perturbation. And I encourage everybody out there, there's a website called Planets, Planets, like planets, like all the planets in our solar system, planettoday.com. It's an ultra simple website. And the only purpose of the website is to show electromagnetic interconnectivity of planets that are electrically connecting to each other. That's all it is. It's really simple. It's like, Mercury might connect with Saturn, and then you'll see those two turn pink, and there's an electromagnetic connection with them where they sit. But as we come up here in the next few days, September 11th, 12th, 13th, and then for sure on the 14th, the electromagnetic connection between those four gas giants begins. And it will not end and disconnect until somewhere around the end of 2025. So for me, this is a very spirit enhancing week for me coming up. Because I firmly believe in the bottom of my heart that when this electromagnetic field starts, that we are absolutely going to see and pierce the veil of darkness, and light is going to be so stark and so clear for the world's populace to see that the darkness will need to try to create such distractions that those that are waking or suddenly see what they never saw before will have to be distracted away from the reality. And I think it begins somewhere, and it's interesting because September 11th and 12th is the real beginning of the electromagnetic field. So, Ransom, I'm going to throw that in your lap, man, and start off the conversation here. But since you got the net, I'll send you over the link real quick, and then you can throw that up on the screen for everybody following tonight. I appreciate your time. It's just such a weird world at the moment. Oh, it's called The Planets Today. My bad. See, I'm glad I double-checked that for you. And
that's all right. I've had
I'm
it
nowhere
up for
near
you while you were
perfect,
talking.
man. I make mistakes all the time. Here we go. The Planets Today. I just sent it over to you in the chat. Oh, wait, that's the wrong chat. That's in the full call chat.
Right.
Let me get over to you in the personal one here. ThePlanetsToday.com, the live view of the solar system, electromagnetic coupling. And it's going to get crazy, and I'm just curious what's going to happen when these really start getting in on it. Okay, man, I'm done. Welcome to the show.
Sweet. Now, I had it up for you while you was talking about it, though. I'm wondering if that's got something to do with, I've been paying attention. I don't know if you saw that link I sent you, but something hit Jupiter a few days ago that was so big, the explosion was like at least the size of the Earth. I mean, it just boom. And then here's this article from NASA where they're talking about tracking 5 potentially hazardous asteroids that'll fly by this weekend in the next couple of days. They say there's no risk to us. A couple of them the size of, jetliners, and one that's a little bit bigger. They don't know about these, and I keep kind of harping on that. But, the thing that we saw on Jupiter the other day, wow, man, it was just a super
was magnificent.
explosion.
That was large.
Yeah. So, and I'm just thinking about this change in electromagnetic behavior that's going on in the solar system, as you can see it all over. And when these different planets line up, you know, they pull and push on these objects in ways that I don't think that people on Earth can, you know, keep track of or you know, have a simulation that's going to tell them exactly, because most of them they don't know about. Like, we didn't know about this. It just boom right into Jupiter, the size of Earth, the explosion there. This was a massive thing. And then, you know, they're always talking about, we're tracking these ones, we're protecting you, don't worry about it. But the truth is these things are rolling in all the time, and they have no idea until usually the last day that the thing's coming in. So, you know, when you look back at Earth's history, the end of the Hunger Dryas, the end of the dinosaurs, etc., you keep seeing these massive impacts, and people forget these things happen, you know, every 100,000 years or so, and we're well due for one to smack into us. And I'm wondering, you know, how much a magnetic field that's the size of at least a quarter of the solar system, you know, plane of ecliptic that we have, the disk there. How much does that play a role in either pulling them in, launching them towards our planet? We also know, like, probably Mars was struck by something very large. A lot of its mantle's gone. And they believe that, you know, whatever event that was exactly what destroyed the electromagnetic protection of Mars. And then slowly, you know, the solar winds, cosmic particles blew away what atmosphere it had. And Earth, you know, we're just sitting here with our nice, luscious atmosphere that they're trying to thin out and kill for some reason. I don't know why we're doing that. But, you know, it would only take one smack of just a tiny object, and you got to wonder how much of a role, like I said, do these planets, and you can see here on the map, I'm moving it around, these electromagnetic fields light up and change daily, hourly. Right. So when they're in the right position and we have no protection on the other side of the solar system, say we're on the other side and all of the planets are on one side, a lot of these scenarios are going to happen several times over in the next year. But especially this little weird V, it's kind of like a square, but it's also like a V, which puts Earth right in the bullseye with nothing in between, you know, like and you got to wonder, will these electromagnetic fields light up and bounce it away from Earth, or will it pull it right in directly to us? And the fact that these things are hitting, matter of fact, there's an increase. I don't know if it's just, you know, simply because there are more videos, more CCTV cameras and things like that rolling, but we are catching a lot of small bolides coming in. You see those big streaks of green and blue burning up in the atmosphere. If you just up the size of some of those little pebbles that you're seeing on these videos, it's a whole new ball game for Earth. And, you know, I think they know exactly when the cycles flip around to when they're more likely to have objects pummel the Earth. And do you think they would tell you? Oh, of course they wouldn't. Even in the Hollywood movies that they portrayed about the subject, one of the main things that they try to pass over to you is that they're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you. They're all going to climb in their bunkers. They're going to do their thing, and they're going to let everybody else just go along watching TikTok until the last second. And then there'll be a reorganization, obviously. But, you know, any one of these scenarios that we're always talking about, a super volcano, 2 or 3 volcanoes going off, with these changes in the way that the Earth and the planets are pulling and tugging on each other in relation to the solar cycles that keep changing, you have to wonder what kind of traumatic event is in our near future. And it could be anything from, you know, like something way bigger than the Carrington event to just a little rock that gets flung our way by these planets to reset everything. And you got to wonder if they do know and they do track the ones that they tell us about, which happen to be never, you know, Earth-threatening objects, would they even tell you if there were objects that they were potentially watching that might have a near miss or a hit or even a glancing blow on the Earth, which would change things radically for, you know, probably 100,000 years or more, depending on what size of rock hit us.
Yeah, and a glancing blow would be interesting. Because, see, I don't know if it would really tilt by force magnetically, because even if it did get tilted off a little bit, the sun's magnetic field with our magnetosphere would tilt it right back again. Like, if you go through the stories of the sun rising in the west and setting in the east, the opposite of where it does now, rising in the west, set in the east, rise in the east, set in the west, it seems that there's a 0-point magnetic field reached that allows that, because you have to have no magnetic field for the planets to move off of their, what we consider axes. And if we do move back to this diagram of the planets, now you look at it, so the 25 is the first number, so that's a 25th, and 09 would be September. So, I have rolled the model out to, say, the 25th of September. Let me bring it back here. Actually, the 9th, September 9th through the 12th, we got Mercury, Uranus, Jupiter, Eris, which is an outer, semi-planet, Neptune, Saturn, and Pluto, all electromagnetically connecting. So something, is turning these electromagnetic fields on when they normally aren't. Now, to answer your question, and I hope we can visualize this. Hold on a second. That once those four gas giants square themselves off, this will be October of 2024. So I'm going to take you in the future a little bit. The electromagnetic coupling of these four gas giants begins now. But as we do one whole orbit for another whole year around the planet, those four gas giants are going to get more and more and more square from the Earth's perspective. They call it the geocentric view. Heliocentric, like Helios from the sun, is from the sun's view. So this is perceived from Earth, so the geocentric view. As you're looking out to the solar system, when we would look out on, say, October 23rd or October 24th of next year, 2024, Uranus, Jupiter, Neptune, and Saturn will be perceived from Earth as a perfect square in one quadrant of the solar system. Now, we're going to be between the sun. It'll be the sun, us right in the middle of that, and then that second magnetic field anomaly. And we haven't really gone through this except that the last time it's been this precise, and I was with Jeff Harmon, and we looked at the charts, 79 AD was the last time that this was experienced where the Earth has gone through this same type of squared field from the outer solar system planet gas giants. Now, we know you go back in history and you start to look around that period, whoa, there was a lot of changes. A lot of changes. And there was a birth of a new religion at the same time. Obviously, they were coming out and coming into Pisces, the fish, Christ, this sort of thing. But now we're moving out of that, and we've just moved into Aquarius. I mean, there's a lot of similarities and overlaps in these types of celestial events. Now, once that magnetic anomaly is subset A of the I guess, the strangeness that we'll experience. So I'm wondering what will happen with a zero magnetic field or a depleted magnetic field or a potentiality of magnetism moving through our solar system that we haven't seen in several thousand years. Like, how will that affect the human brain? How's it going to affect the perception of the human brain? How's it going to affect our cognitive abilities? At that time, I would be terrified to be in a plane. Things probably aren't going to work. They're probably going to lose their compasses or have them behave strangely. People are going to be freaking out. Electronic equipment might not work correctly. There's going to be a lot of things that just are going to rift and break in the top mile of the crust, 2 miles, global liquefaction, mud flood kind of stuff. But once the Earth, and this is to answer your question, Ransom, so once the Earth swings around, after it's between the sun and the squared off magnetic field from the gas giants, we're going to continue on our orbit. And when we come into April of 2025, we are going to be the only planet in the entire solar system in front of the sun. And those 4 gas giants are still going to have their magnetic field behind the sun, but we won't be there. We will be in front of the sun. We'll be the only planet there. Now you're asking, tugging, pulling. All the gravitational bodies, including the sun, are going to pull everything straight into the face of the planet. Straight into the face of the planet for 4 to 5 months. Now after that, luckily, then we'll come off to the side of the sun, after April to maybe June, early summer. And then as we start, the safety zone for us is when we get behind the sun again, pretty much coming into the fall of 2025. And at that point, the gas giants will have move slightly and, deconfigure their square, so their magnetic pull and magnetic attraction or whatever anomaly this is will also be dissipating day by day. So as we come around after 2025 and we come into the same position in 2025, but the gas giants will have broken their square. And as we come around in spring of 2026, the gas giants will not have nearly the electromagnetic pull that they did in April of 2025, because everything is, and the orbit's just going to continue, but it's going to continue to spread. So that coupling that causes that from the four planets is going to dissipate because the four planets are getting wider apart from each other. Jupiter's moving way faster than Neptune. And you got to think about the orbits on some of these things. Like the orbit of Jupiter screaming along versus the orbit of Neptune. I mean, you're talking like almost 100-year orbit compared to something that's around 11 years. I mean, things are going to move way faster. So some of these biggest effectors like Jupiter is going to move way faster than like Uranus or even Saturn. So it'll get out of the way quick and that magnetic field will break. So we won't see it in 2026. We'll see like a lessening of the effects day upon day upon day. But, you got think about how governments are going to try to react to this. Think about that for a second. They're just going to try to be keeping continuity of government themselves going through this time here. Like, if you think you're going to be on their list of people to help or save, you're sorely mistaken. You are totally on your own. They're going to lock themselves in some bunkers. Continuity of government comes first. The control of the monetary system after this event comes second. They're going to keep the government intact and try to keep some sort of monetary system intact. And that's it, man. That's my ramble.
They're definitely prepping for something, man. I've been, scanning through everything that they have that is being put out as far as media, from NGOs to, the news outlets, all of this. And all I'm seeing is drone everything. Drone. Even
because there won't be people ransomed. They'll all be hiding from this event. That's the thing. That's why it's all going drone, so they can have something on the surface to still monitor people. But they're all going to be some subsurface or off planet during this event.
Yeah. And not only that, it seems like they're prepared. We've talked a lot about the way that the human evolution, say, is going. We had, maybe 5 or 6 species that ended up being one hybridized admixture species that we today call Homo sapiens sapien. But those were all natural, meetings of, or at least we think they were natural meetings of different kind of humans that eventually, made one species that won out over the other. But now we're entering in a time, and it's so rapid. And I joke about these things. So about 2 weeks ago, I brought up the fact that, besides them pushing the idea of having factories to create human beings, that there was a bunch of articles out that were talking about that scientists no longer needed the mother or the father, and that's what we're talking about, the egg or the sperm. They didn't need those two sources to create a human embryo. And this week we have, this is only a couple weeks later, scientists grow human embryo in a lab without sperm, without egg, or without womb. And that's also something that I've talked about for some time, is that they don't need the parents anymore. We're at a technologically advanced state that, and if you listen to it closely, and it's funny, I was watching InfoWars for like a minute today because, it's hard for me to watch Alex Jones for too long. And I mean, it's not that I don't agree with most of what he says. It's just, I've heard him since the 90s banging on these ideas. But, reality and times have caught up and surpassed him to where he seems to be a little bit behind. But he was harping today about the wordage that they used for this article, and it was scientists report they have grown the early stages of a human embryo-like entity. See, I don't know why they added that word. See, because on the headline, you don't see the word entity. It says human embryo. But down here, when you get into the article right away, it says human embryo-like entity without using sperm, egg, or womb. And, you know, if you're up to date with the times, you understand that we have 3D printing of DNA that is created inside of a computer model, meaning that AI and algorithms designed the DNA strands that they're messing around with. And, you know, they also admit in the same week that, hey, you know, we're making hybrids. We're making more hybrids, more admixtures. We've, you know, theorized for years that they were going to start making human pig hybrids for the supposed purpose of growing hearts and other organs for transplantation. But it seems like they're going much, much further than that. And we're talking about life on Earth all the way from the partial RNA and DNA of viruses all the way up to bacteria and on up the entire biosphere of Earth. They've cataloged it. They've mapped it out. They've admitted now even the junk DNA they're figuring out. They've decoded the the male and female aspects of the entire DNA. So now we have all of the information available. I'm not sure that they exactly know what all of it means, but they do have it. They've mapped it out, and now they can start tinkering with it. And they couldn't even wait till they had the whole thing mapped out before they started tinkering with it. So now we're talking about gene-edited this, gene-edited that, gene-edited animals, gene-edited humans. And now we're talking about who's eating who and what they're eating. So we don't even have to get into that. But just the simple fact that they are creating life, not unlike the Sumerian stories or fables or histories or whatever you want to call them of the Sumerians, where they talk about these characters, gods or aliens, whatever your take is on those stories, that they were creating humans, or at least fiddling with human-like creatures that lived on Earth already at the time, and that they were messing with them, and that they had several different versions of it before they settled on one, and then eventually they mixed with those two. So, you know, those sound like fanciful stories. And in the last 50 years, you might think to yourself, that's completely nonsense. It's science fiction. It's woo-woo. But here we're looking at literally a mainstream headline now. Scientists grow human embryo in womb in a lab without sperm, egg, or womb. And we've talked about how they can tinker with it. And now we're having the ideas that now you can add this to the other technologies being proposed. And we're talking about the worst far out form of eugenics possible. And that's where corporations and governments now have the keys to creation. And now they don't need you. They don't need the massive work force that you represent. They don't need the generational wealth that you've built. In fact, they would like it better if we just reduce the population down to a small worker class, fill in the gaps with AI, drones, machines. And if you don't want to cooperate, guess what? Those same machines and technologies can be turned against you. We can't get into specifics because you could get banned for YouTube for telling the truth about specific scientists and what they're making and why and what they say they're self there. So you could look at, you know, all of the programs regarding DNA. And, you know, that's enough said on that. But just the basic idea that they don't need us anymore. They can now literally replace a population from the beginning, and not unlike Mao and Hitler and Stalin and all of these other people throughout time, even back into the Roman era, that said, you know what, I don't care what you think. All I need is your children. And the reason for that is because in 20 years, those children will think a certain thing. They will learn a certain history. They will feel a certain way about the way of their era, and you are replaced and you don't matter. So now we can circumvent that by going around the nuclear family and not having familial ties with people. So no loyalty. Each person is their own person. And it's not, you know, too far from the plot in Star Wars where they create a clone army to quote unquote save the Republic and then turn it into, of course, a unified empire at the end.
Yeah, it goes right along with the orphan trains and the mud flood, man. I'm telling you, those things are related. And if you're the first time you're hearing about the term mud flood, we could call it the proper term global liquefaction event or continental liquefaction event. Now, if we go to the very recent past, you'll find that in the 1800s, they had to move an enormous amount of orphans around the planet. And people were wondering, like, what happened to all the adults? You know, it's very much the same thing, like society and history had been reset at that point within the last 200 years. I mean, what we see in modern day today is a result of that movement and retraining and reprogramming of young minds that were just set into place to create a new society, new cities, new areas of countries, just to repopulate it. I encourage everybody to take a look at orphan trains. And it's not exclusively in Europe, and it wasn't exclusively in the United States. It was everywhere across the planet. Now, I'm wondering, like, where did all these children come from without their parents? You know, and a lot of these images that, you know, because photography was pretty much, it was getting more advanced. You know, first photos, 1830s, 1840s, you know, it was kind of grainy, 1850s, 60s, but it started to get pretty good in around the 1870s. Don't delude yourself. Like, you know, they Eastman Kodak and everything. Well, they didn't come around until like 1900 or 1920. And, you know, they try to put a specific date of some technology that's good enough for us. Like, you know, the Civil War photos, they try to make it that was the infancy of the photography era, but it was decades, plural, earlier than that. So when you get into the 1880s and you see these images of cities, especially right around 1890, completely empty, like capital cities with like not a soul on the streets. That would include places like New York City, very sparsely populated in the late 1880s. You know, and I understand New York at that time was, you know, it was becoming a massive influx for people coming from across the planet. I mean, my great-great-grandparents came through Ellis Island approximately 1880 as well. I mean, there was a huge influx of people. Now you're shooting down the streets, taking photos in New York City in 1880, 1888, whatever, and there's almost nobody there. And I'm like, oh, no. And then it's just time and time again, and these out-of-place artifacts and buildings, you know, built to such grandiose structures of, you know, the apex of European architecture, but in the middle of the desert Southwest here. And they're like, well, it was an anomaly. They just built it. They had this thing, and nothing is explained. I mean, everything was built to 50x the population needs across the planet. And that is another thing that seems to be a very common. So I'm coming to a point with this. But if you look at the grandiose and the largeness of the structures from the 1880s to the, say, early 1900s, they always try to play it off like it was repurposed. They were repurposed for universities. It was asylums. It was this. It was that. But just the size of it for the population made zero sense. You know, you're talking about 1849 when people are going out to California. The railroad wasn't even completed yet. And they're finding something equally as large as today's architecture out there. Like, what? It makes no sense. And especially Salt Lake City and Ransom, you've done a ton of work out looking around. And you know a fair few like Rex and those guys always looking for these, you know, just out of place, gigantic architecture things, half buried on the first floors. And really, I think it has something to do with a cyclical nature of the planets and their alignments and these electromagnetic frequency changes, magnetic or what you consider gravitational changes that cause an oozing out from our Earth's crust, a squeezing of the crust to ooze out mud across 25 to 30% of the Earth's crust, anywhere from 10 feet deep to maybe 30 feet deep. And, you know, another thing that's standard across the planet, I don't care which continent you go to, they routinely find buildings that once they excavate them with modern machinery, they find that the door, which you consider was the ground level, was knocked into the second floor of a building. And once they excavate it, they find the entire, you know, first floor. And they can never explain how that was completely buried. An entire city, you got to think they wouldn't have had the manpower at that point. There would have been a lot of people that would have perished during an event like that. Because you got to think about where the food come from. You know, where would the rails be? I've seen an enormous amount of pictures where they were not constructing rail lines. They were digging the rail lines out of after this event. And I encourage you to look into something called a mud flood, or it's actually the technical term for it is a global liquefaction event. I am firmly of the belief that something like this is inbound. This is the reason that governments are preparing for what they're preparing for. The drones, well, that makes perfect sense because they're going to want to survey what's left over. The technology's there. Let's say a city, give me a mid-sized city like Milwaukee or St. Louis, or, it doesn't have to be New York and LA and all these things. Just, Atlanta, Georgia. Something breaks and oozes out and we get 12 feet.
Sounds like you were cut off, sir. I think your internet may have thrown you off of the show. Let me make sure. Gotta check my other headset.
Ransom, I don't know, man. Did I lose the reception there? Ransom.
Yeah, you just kind of left off when you were talking about the event there as soon as you started talking about it.
Yeah, did I get up to Atlanta? That was my whole point is you got to think about drones would be the only way to survey the damage if a global liquefaction event were to occur. Because you got to think about, I was just trying to use Atlanta or St. Louis or Milwaukee, something like this, like a, smaller American city. Doesn't have to be New York, whatever. But imagine if, just say Atlanta, Georgia, there was a liquefaction event there and mud came out and buried 100 miles even outside of Atlanta, 10 feet deep of mud. Like all the single-story structures around would be completely buried up to the roofs. None of the highways would be functional. They'd all be 10 feet under mud. Like the overpasses would still be there. But they would just lead off into the mud in both directions. No communications would work. None of the rail lines would work. There'd be no highways. There'd be no roads. Now, how would you survey that? So that's one of the things when you talked about drones, like after such an event, drones would be the way to do it. Like I'm sure they'd want to know where the bullion banks are. Like with GPS now and GIS software and you overlay that, you could target that and drop, some kind of pins on like physical dropping straight down a steel pin so you could mark your positions and go in and just excavate where, the precious metals would be in a city. Like they're going to do it quite a bit different than it took us 100 years last time to undig everything. I don't know, man. I see something coming and too many governments preparing with too much tech, like they're not even expecting people to be here when this event is finished. Or if it is minimum population and they're going to do something on the, like I say, the drones, that's going to be the way that things will be surveyed, delivered, moved around, and it won't require any humans to do it. But remember, you're going to prepare for this continuity of government. When you pop out after the event, how are you still going to maintain and move goods, services, map, track, find the valuables that were buried? This is a whole thing. You hit it on the head, man. Drones is where it's going to go to.
Well, think about this. Last week, I brought up an article where they were talking about how artificial intelligence and unmanned aircraft could be the answer to the problem of human frailty in the skies. In other words, they could use, unmanned AI to control commercial aircraft so that they don't have to worry about human beings having a stroke or heart attack or any of those things while they're in air. But this week, now we have this one from Zero Hedge. FFA cancels United Airlines nationwide ground stop. And when you look into why it is because they're talking about the planes are old. The equipment's old. Things are falling apart, right? So everything's being pushed into a whole new phase of construction, technology, and what it's leaving out is the human component. Even in policing, here's one, NYPD to send drones over backyard barbecues this weekend to make sure, people aren't barbecuing with too many people. Maybe they're not supposed to be starting fires or they're not allowed to barbecue because the smell of meat may offend someone, whatever the reason. Now you have
vegan joggers, get out of the way.
Right. You'll have a complete intrusion into your life by little snitching robots. And we saw that go down at the beginning of the pandemic in China and other places. Here's another one. Pentagon to develop drone swarms with eye towards future China war. In other words, they want to send a lot of manless drones into the combat zone, just like I've been talking about. And then here at home and other places, more to the point that they don't need men or human beings for the work. Robo forklifts that can get sick. They won't get sick, that can't get sick. They're not going to unionize. They're hitting warehouse floors across Japan. And if you know from manufacturing trends that whatever Japan does follows into the market. Ever since they came up with the just-in-time shipping system and philosophy, this will go more to that with robots, making sure that everything's timely and controlled by AI. The problem with this, like we've talked about before, is you get empty warehouses. When supply chains shut down, just-in-time ain't in time enough because nothing shows up. Because there was only enough room for the one shipment. So they don't store things. It's like when you go to the store now, they can order it for you. Well, you can order it yourself. So it's no longer a supply and demand system from top down. But you see that the robots are taking over everywhere. And then get to your point about, you were talking about an event and what they could use drones for. Some good examples of a liquefaction type event are places like, we can talk about. You brought up the buildings that we sometimes go look at in the Southwest. And the unique thing about those is those were brought up by the worst year in human history, right? Was it 569, I think? 569 or something like that. Anyway, all of the volcanoes went off all over the world, and there was no building society or a society in the Southwest of the United States that did any kind of architecture until all over the world. You had all of these millions of people dying from the Mayan Empire, just ceasing to do anything for 100+ years. But you have all of these other new empires popping out of seemingly this worldwide catastrophe that happened. You have the Tiwanaku culture, which is ironic because if you look at Tiwanaku, a little bit near it is a place called Pumapunku. And all of the clues point to that they had some kind of metallurgy facility there at the shores of Lake Titicaca and some kind of traumatic event, something big enough to knock down megalithic blocks and throw them around like nothing. And we know that there was a large amount of water with this event because a lot of the stones are either buried, half buried, or sitting on pillars of mud, and the surrounding area has eroded around them with these giant blocks still sitting on like 6-7 feet of mud. And then another example of that is when you look at Easter Island, and not the newer, volcanic rock. What are they? The Easter Island heads. Those are new, but if you go up towards the top, you find these giant black granite moai. And they are completely buried up to their neck. And there's no way that the amount of time that they say that they were built, could there be that much of, erosion and sediment deposited there? So something happened big time that covered most of that. And at Tiwanaku right there, it looks like they built a city near where an old city was using the junk and remnants that they found, the blocks laying around, the smaller ones they could build with. And do they even know what happened to Pumapunku? But whatever it was some kind of giant liquefaction event that even their megalithic structure could not withstand.
Yeah, and that's the thing, the withstanding of forces. And, you have to think there would be some land subsistence or land raising going on at the same time during this. Now, how much will it be? Not sure. And I wanted to stay on the theme of flying things, if I could here. I'm over on SOT.net, which is Sign of the Times.net, SOTT. They have an article here, Flamingos found in Ohio after being blown across the U.S. by Hurricane Idalia. Now, see, for me, this makes zero sense here. They're saying that the hurricane blew the flamingos all the way up to Ohio. I'm like, wait a second, the flamingos would just get out of the way and go to Georgia or something just out of Mississippi and then stay there. Okay, hurricanes pass and then fly back. Like for me, this is an electromagnetic field event occurring that these flamingos are moving to different places. Nothing more, nothing less. Flamingos have been found in America's Midwest after being blown across the country by a hurricane. That hurricane landed at Category 3, quickly dissipated to Category 1 within hours after it rolled into the peninsula. As it was going over Georgia, turned into just like a tropical force winds. And you're telling me that flamingos from that, which is not even, it's a Category 3, it landed, it was a 2 for a while, it barely strained the 3, and boom, and then it back down again. But it blew flamingos 500 to 700 miles north, and that makes no sense to me either. This one here, are you telling me if you're flamingo, you're going to fly like how many days and days and days to get up that? Think about it in a rational sense. If you're driving from Ohio and you're going to drive straight down to the Florida Panhandle, you're looking at least a 12-hour drive at the minimum. That's in a car. Are you telling me a flamingo's not going to find somewhere to rest and go, oh, okay, cool. There's no hurricane winds up here in Georgia. They're going to fly all the way to Ohio after that? So something here, man, is surely amiss with this kind of story. So I just don't get it. Things in the heavens, signs in the skies, animals behaving strangely. And there's just more and more validation that something with the electromagnetic field of the planet is off. And it's really starting to affect a lot of people and a lot of infrastructure and a lot of life as we know it across the planet. I'm just waiting for just giant tides to start out of nowhere when this electromagnetic coupling comes. Because I forget, who was I talking with? I know you and I had this conversation also about what if just tides came in? And if there was no liquefaction event, what if the tides just came in super big and that was it? The tides were 10 times taller than or deeper than they usually are. And that was the only effect of this electromagnetic coupling. The tides were 10 times deeper for just a few days on either side of the true coupling in 2024. How much of a devastating effect that would have on society. Coastal. Man, we would be set back, 50 to 70 years just on tides being much larger and much deeper than normal. So I don't know what you think, Ransom, but this screen grab here and this story about flamingos now being found in Kentucky and Ohio. I just cannot believe that the excuse they're giving that they were blown by that hurricane all the way up to Ohio.
Well, I don't know if you noticed it, but when I clicked on that, when you were talking about it, I looked it up, and right next to it is another story about 4 lost flamingos that fly north for the winter and turn up in Siberia. Isn't that something similar to what flamingos found in Ohio after being blown across the U.S. by Hurricane Idalia? Did they get blown across, or did they just fly to a new place looking for new areas to hang out in? Because birds are really susceptible to magnetic changes, and we know the magnetic field on Earth right now is close to a collapsing state. I mean, at least it's shrank a lot. And not only that, you have the poles moving around at a rapid rate more than, times past. We could see it relative to how fast it's moved, and it's been increasing. And one of those poles is going right over to Siberia, isn't it? But that is weird. One flamingo was spotted ambling along a snowy bank of the Usa River. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce that Russian name, but that's all the way to Siberia. Think about that. So you're tripping out about flamingos in Ohio. What about these instances of animals going like way across the planet like this? I mean, this is something similar all the way in Siberia. Why would they fly that far north for the winter? That doesn't make any sense either. I think that, we know for a fact that most of the animals on Earth are tied to both the tides and the magnetic field. So any change in either one of those could have real traumatic effects. But, you were saying 10 times the tide. I don't even think it needs to be that much, maybe just 2 or 3 times. If you're getting 10 or 15 feet extra of water, moving back and forth on the planet, everybody would have to change the zoning on where that they built around the coast. And what if that was permanent? What if it didn't just, go away within a couple of days? What would cause something like that would have to be something with mass, though, I would think. I don't know how much pull on water electromagnetism has, but we know it has a pull on the Earth itself. And no telling what kind of results that would have if, water was rushing up. I think we've seen that, what would happen with hurricanes, and it would be something similar like that, but without the bad weather.
Yeah, they call that Mateo tsunami. And I was just thinking when you were talking there, what if just on the continental shelf, the entire continental shelf raised 10 feet and tilted? Like that would send an enormous amount of water, because where it would be 30 feet deep, it would suddenly only be 20 feet deep. And where it was 10 feet deep, that would be above water. And then all that would be redirected into different locations that wouldn't drain like it does now. Because what you described with the Polar Wander, and I encourage everybody to go over to Suspicious Observe and check out Ben. Hey, Ben, what are you doing? But he's doing some good work on showing where, you're right, the North Pole is transiting over Siberia, and it's coming down into the Kamchatka Peninsula. And it is continuing south. And the Antarctic Pole, which used to be, and you think about Antarctica, so in the middle of Antarctica is where the South Pole should be. The South Pole has moved. It's not even on Antarctica anymore. It's out into the Indian Ocean in the water, transiting. Right in the research that Ben's doing is showing that it looks like somewhere off of Indonesia is where these two poles will meet, if they meet. Because like magnetism, nothing really smacks together. It repels, because you got a North Pole and a South Pole, opposite polarities. They're going to get close, but they're not going to snap together like an attracting magnet. They're repelling each other. So they're going to come somewhere in the vicinity of equatorial bands off of Indonesia, apparently to the south of Indonesia. So if that gives you any indication of, how many years are we talking about that pole in either direction moving? Because currently, before when they did the assessments, and who was it? Mavstar got his own system and network of magnetometers out there, which the government also intercepted the SD cards, which his network was sending to him to consolidate the data, because they didn't want to put it online. He said, just mail the SD cards to me and we'll do it all old school style like this, nothing online. I'll replicate it and then put the findings up online, but don't send it through, because that could be manipulated. And I don't know if I'm getting the correct information, but somebody was intercepting the SD cards and reprogramming them in mid-journey through the mail system, which he thought was more secure than doing it online. So the magnetometers were showing, and the reason I'm telling you this, originally when MAV put it out, it was about 20 miles per year that the North Pole was moving. And then they noticed an uptick about 40 miles a year. But they noticed the same thing in the southern hemisphere. And they noticed also the magnetic anomaly started to move north and to the west over, it's out off the Atlantic, off of South America, but they were noticing that the South Atlantic anomaly was moving to the north and moving to the west, which would eventually bring it over land around Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay area. It was going to trend in that direction. So anyway, SWARM, which is, our taxpayer funded magnetic satellites, or that's what they're measuring. The magnetic field of the planet. You know what? That is offline now. It's been offline for a year now. You're not even able to see the real-time updates of the magnetics of our planet with your bought and paid for tax dollars that was launched by NASA. They scrapped that and took all the data down. But then Mavstar comes up and goes, we're moving 60 miles per year now. Like a 1 full degree every single year. And when I say degree, I'm talking about degrees latitude, degrees longitude. You're talking about 1 degree. That's 60 miles is 1 degree. That's a huge amount of movement for a year, from 20 miles to 60. And, to verify that, and then SWARM goes offline. So if you think about from the North Pole to South Pole, these poles have already been moving how many hundreds of miles already off their polar. That's why they call it polar wander. They've already moved out of their polar positions. Hundreds, South America, or as I should say, the southern poles have moved more than thousands of miles off of Antarctica out into the Indian Ocean. So if you're doing 60 miles a year coming toward each other, that's 120 miles. But, they're considering that this thing is going to start rapidly increasing, where it might be 2 degrees for each pole coming toward each other would be like 240, 250 miles per year. So give that a couple years and you're already up. And then if it's exponential and it goes to 500 miles per year, I mean, they're literally just talking years before they're going to snap somewhere over Indonesia. Now, the latest data I have on that polar wander and the movement is still transiting the same exact direction. Like those poles are being attracted to each other. That's the whole craziest thing is those poles are being pulled toward each other. Now, they're never going to meet, but they're going to snap back. But it's interesting how they're getting pulled toward each other, and it's going to occur over Asia, somewhere in the Indian Ocean off of Indonesia. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. But how much sea life's going to be affected that echolocates or magnetically locates? What about the bees? Everybody's on the whales, man. Hey, screw the whales, screw the seals, bees. What about the bees, man? Nobody's thinking about the bees. We're focused on the whales. Man, whales, get out of the way. What happens when the bees go, man? Well, I think that
we'd have to get out there and pollinate everything ourselves with them little bee drones. Those little microscopic drones. That all of this technology is really having a shell shock on society, man. I was watching these people on their videos all over the place that think that birds are not real because they saw on TV that there's a couple of drones that are about bird size. They look like doves. Now, however, that is a real thing and a real technology that real people are using. There's like people so weirded out about it that they're going out and killing birds and cutting them. And because their little bodies don't have that much blood in them, they're like, look, it's fake. There's no blood. The birds are fake. Space is fake. Everything's fake. The amount of confusion that I see on the internet with basic things like really, really intelligent people still think the earth is flat and that there's enough evidence that it's, that's a real thing. Now, it is flat in spots. There's lots of flat spots on the earth. However, you could put a pole up here. I could travel to Colorado and put a pole up and we could put live streams on it and we could measure the shadows. If you live in Australia, you can look up at the moon when it comes up as full moon, look at it, look at the way its orientation is compared to the way it looks in the northern hemisphere. So I don't understand why there's so much confusion. So that's where we're at. Nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, we got to stop the internet, man. We can't even let anybody discuss that because, let's just shut the internet down. We'll be back after this short break. Mini Ice Age Conversations, David Devine, Ransom Godwin. We'll be right back.